So what I'm trying to get leaders to do, Chris, in my leadership coaching is to move from time management to energy investment.
For
and again, maybe it's 5 minutes of the right coaching conversation, or like you're doing, listening to somebody who goes, oh, okay, great. You help them make the best decision. That's actually gonna be better than maybe nursing that decision for the next 5 months. So that's a big
100%.
thing too, is people begin to realize, I actually want to put my energy back to the things that truly matter to me. Like yours,
Yep.
faith and family. Like most leaders don't know what they really care about, what really matters to them. You can't prioritize what you haven't already clarified.
100%. And I think too, whether it be with EOS or outside of EOS, when we do coaching, we do personal wealth business coaching, right? So, and it's part of really the transition process for business typically. But we have the same 4 tools. And one of the tools that's across all of those is scorecards.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome back to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we discuss how to buy, grow, and eventually sell small businesses. Today, we've got a really incredible topic. I'm joined by my good friend, Alan Briggs, who is the CEO of H2 Leadership and Sabbatical Coaching Group. We're talking about an issue that I don't do well, that a lot of other CEOs and entrepreneurs don't do well, which is how do you rest well to create kind of optimum energy going into different phases of life? So, Alan, I'm so thankful to have you. Welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, Chris, great to be here, man. Excited to break open a conversation with you.
For sure, man. This is one that's almost taboo, I think, in the hustle and grind society. It's something that my wife and I have really worked on the past couple of years. So I'm really excited to dig in and just hear your wisdom and hear about all the lessons that you're teaching and learning from your clients. But before we dig into that, man, tell me about you and your family, your background, and how you got to do what you're doing today.
Yeah, first of all, I'm an adventurer. I'm built as an adventurer. I love going on adventures. I live in Colorado, so find myself on mountaintops as often as I can or in streams. But also I love going on the adventure of life, leadership, and business with my clients. And in fact, I won't coach somebody that doesn't feel like they have an adventurous mindset of expansion, growth, and elevation. So that's what I get to do. I got 4 amazing kids. Love going on adventures with them as well.
Can I ask you a question? Can I pause you there? What's a question you ask? So that's a really interesting matrix that you get somebody into. How do you qualify that of when, you've got all kinds of people saying, hey, Alan, I want to work with you. What are some questions you use? Because I think this is good for us and our audience to be thinking about, how do we think about, do we have that growth mindset? What are some questions? And sorry to interrupt, but that's a big one.
Let's go. I always encourage leaders to come up with filters. What are your filters? So pre-made decisions ahead of time for saying yes or no. I have 4 filters that are 4 things that need to be true for me to work with a client. It actually doesn't matter whether they're a general contractor, whether they're working in the solar business, or whether they're leading a nonprofit. 4 things have to be true about that leader. First of all, humble. There's just a humility that precedes change. I don't know why you would seek coaching if you didn't have that humility. The second is hunger. Like they are willing to grow. That's usually not a problem with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have paid the price heavily to start the thing, lead the thing, launch the thing, grow the thing. So humble first, hungry second. The third one is honest. Coaching does not go well when people are hiding, when people need to share something self-deprecating, something hard, something they're failing at. What's not working? Why are we here in this session? Why did you reach out? Why did you send that email? And then the last one is high capacity. I only work with leaders that have not topped out yet. They haven't hit the tabletop. They just have so much more in the tank than they've been able to access. So those are actually the 4 H's that when I meet with them for an initial breakthrough session, we're trying to break through some area of their life or leadership where they're stuck or have hit an obstacle. Those are the 4 things that I'm looking for.
I love that, man. That's so clear. That's such a good framework, and very similar to some of the frameworks we have, the Pat Lencioni, Hungry, Humble, Smart, for how we think about recruiting employees and team members and that sort of thing. So, all right, let's keep rolling. We've got the 4 H's. You're an adventurer. You're working through your journey. How'd you get to do what you do today?
I realized that most leaders that were either topping out or burning out were doing so not because of their capacity, but because of the lack of sustainability. It was a sustainability issue, not a competency or capacity issue. And people were going so hard without a governor that the RPMs were so high, they didn't know who they were. Maybe they had identity challenges where they had to prove that they could launch this company to themselves or to their family members or their friends or whatever. And people were burning out in the process. And I just started to observe it, and I started to see enough cases of that happening before we were studying burnout epidemic and things like that culturally, going, we have a problem here amongst high capacity leaders. I mean, leaders with extreme capacity, but low sustainability factor, i.e. they were sprinting at the beginning of a 26.1 mile marathon or 26.2 and going, what's happening? So I started to observe that and started to realize that I had this unique knack for coaching and for helping people to clarify things, see things ahead of time proactively, and realize it's a whole lot easier, Chris, when we see things ahead of time and we can name them, and then we can actually change the game. We can change our approach. And leaders are very, very open to change when it's ahead of time. When we're stuck in a jam, it's really, really hard to change, and that those consequences are greater. So I started to see other leaders that was the issue. I saw that in them, and I began to coach kind of accidentally, and it was probably underneath the guise of mentoring and things like that. And I realized, man, this is a thing, and this actually matters more than producing great content. No offense to me and anybody else that produces content. It matters, but information without activation doesn't actually produce transformation. And once I got in the transformation business, I was hooked.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so tell us more about just how you grew up and your background, and because this is a very interesting niche. And then the next question I want to lead to, which is, what is a sabbatical? So let's dig in a little bit more to you and how you got into this and the culture getting into an entrepreneurship role and starting a business. You've got to probably have great support at home, and it's tough. So tell us a little bit more about that background.
Yeah, so I grew up as a kid in Virginia who loved, again, I've always been an adventurer, loved the mountains, loved the stream, loved the outdoors, loved sports and competition, but I really loved building my landscaping business. So any entrepreneur you talk to, there was this at least seed of it as a little kid. What were you like when you were 5 to 10 years old? And for me, making money was fun. Creating a niche or finding a niche, creating an opportunity, creating a business inside of that, employing my friends was fun. I didn't have a huge gap for money. I didn't need a whole bunch of stuff. My parents provided our basic needs, and yet I loved it. And I would go and work really hard and produce these things, run this landscaping business, find new pieces of that. And that's how I spent a lot of my teenage years, actually. So that's really where I started, super supportive for my parents. My dad would always ask me this question, Chris, what's the worst people can say? Is no. Okay. And maybe the worst they can say is ghost us these days. And I still carry that as an adult. I still carry that into a sales conversation or a hard coaching conversation. What's the worst they can say? So grateful to grow up underneath parents that were hugely supportive. My wife's incredibly supportive. We both have a heart for really those pushed aside by society and culture. And so she works in the foster care space. So she doesn't understand entrepreneurship very well, and yet she's hugely supportive of my entrepreneurship, and she's learned and grown a lot in the process of that. So couldn't have been supported better growing up, could not be supported better by my wife. Maybe the third category is I've had to develop friends around me who get it and who understand the entrepreneur mindset, because I'm starting a few businesses and I'm also helping people who are leading businesses at the same time. So I was thrown, into this entrepreneurial culture. I spent years in nonprofits, and that's a completely different mindset, although some of the same leadership principles are true.
So was burnout an issue that you struggled with, or was it just something that you saw all around you?
I brushed up against it, but I would not say I fully burned out. And there's really two philosophies, I think, on experiential learning, Chris. Some people say you just have to experience it, and others say, no, we can actually learn from other people. And I sit in you have to experience a lot of it. You don't have to experience everything terrible. And that's why I believe in things like mastermind groups and coaching, is you actually can, if you clarify there's going to be an issue down the line, create a different path. If I didn't believe that, I couldn't be in coaching. I still have an optimism that humans can actually change and transform and cut a different path than their parents gave them or than their industry gives them or something like that. So that's really, really important. I brushed up against it. What I would say is in my 20s, Chris, I had the most energy naturally that I'll probably ever have my whole life. And I wasted so much of it that my energy was just leaking everywhere. And I was trying to do all the things, and I was lazy about how I was doing them. I had very few boundaries. I wasn't taking care of myself physically. And so I started to see as I headed into my 30s, man, I actually haven't accomplished as much as I could have if I really would have understood who I was, said no to certain things, have boundaries, and then find rhythms to just keep getting that flywheel spinning that Jim Collins talks about. And so that's really when I realized, man, if I don't change some things, as I'm heading into having a bunch of kids, we have 4 kids, adoption, pressure just of business and things that I was doing on the side, like I'm not going to be able to do all of it. And so I would just say I got to a spot where I had to make changes, or I realized burnout was inevitable, and that wasn't going to end well for me or my family or my company.
I love it, man. And you touched on something that we've talked about on almost every podcast, which is clarity. And that's one of the things that we do with our clients, whether it be in the financial advisory side with my wife who runs that business, or the A&D advisory, or any of the businesses that we own, which is really clarifying what's important. And everybody has different clarity of what's important. But for me, it's always faith and family they're so far ahead of everything else. When we can clarify that and have that be our lens, then the next point, what you said, it allows us to say no to things. And I always say, at least in the US, we have an abundance of awesome things to go to. It's not like, hey, we don't have enough to do. It's like, oh, we've got sports and we have church and we have fun potlucks and we have, we can hike, we can bike, we can dirt, but like there's too many things to do. And it's always every week there's 5 or 6 things that we get from friends or whoever that are like, come to this, do this, and they're all good things, right? And so it's tough because you're not saying no to bad things that are going to hurt you, but you're saying no to the busyness. But having clarity of, hey, is the family being prioritized? Is my faith being prioritized? If I can keep those healthy, everything else is going to work out okay. I love that, man.
Let's dive in there. Another thing to add to that is seasons. What season is this? Is this your first year of the business, or is this year 6 of the business? Every week I say to clients, what got you here isn't going to get you there. In fact, the very thing that got you to this point, and it was probably grinding and hustle and your intuitive wits and a little bit of luck in that space, is actually going to hold you back from maturity, growth, and success in the next season. And if we can realize the seasons, that's clarity work right there. Every leader needs to have a to-don't list. Every single leader needs to go, I pre-declare what those are in one of our tools. We created this tool called the Right Side Up Journal. And inside of it, what's on your to-don't list? And every week I have, there's 3 to 5 things in there. Don't do this, don't do this. Because you're right, people are going to ask. We live in a culture of excess. So this excessive culture is going to produce good things. And here's the trick for leaders is that as you succeed, people will give you more opportunities. And nobody tells you that. So the more you succeed, the more no's you're going to have to give, because everybody wants a piece of success and momentum and when things are going well. And so the price of you succeeding is that you are going to have to say more no's, and every opportunity that comes to you now, especially if it's repeating, needs to be guilty until proven innocent, not the opposite. And we often get into things to be yes people and we say yes. And that's why so many leaders end up being burned out, flamed out, or going, I'm disconnected from my heart. I don't even care about this. What is the purpose in this? Do I still have my why inside of this business? And I watch it happen all the time. And if we don't make that shift and clarify what truly matters, what am I amazing at? What am I uniquely designed to do? What does this season require of me? Here are my pre-made, I actually help entrepreneurs pre-make their to-don't list and pre-make their like turning it down script. When someone emails you, I regret to inform you that I cannot blank. Put it in a note on your phone because
for sure.
we don't need to waste mental energy on it. So I know I jumped on that one quickly because I'm so passionate about leaders creating clarity around the season, the no's, the yeses, and then there's a little sliver for the opportunities of what is best, what is next. Let's put our best energy there.
I love it, man. And even just to dial that into more like tactical, we have all these, we use Google Suite. We have all these just Gmail email templates. Like put a, a one paragraph response. It's like, hey, this is such an awesome opportunity. I can't make it. Appreciate you asking me. And one of the things that my mentors have always clarified is, hey, you don't have to make an excuse for not accepting something, right? If somebody invites you to something, you don't have to be like, well, I'm too busy or I'm this or
it's
I'm that.
None of their business.
Blah, blah, blah. It really is.
Why not?
It's a politeness of a thank you. Man, thank you. This is such an awesome opportunity. I can't make it happen. Appreciate you. Look forward to catching up. Super simple. But I think, like you said, having that polite template where you're not thinking through, oh, I got to make an excuse about how my kids have soccer or I'm this or I just have too much stuff going on. I love that. Okay, I want to get into the, as Nacho Libre says, the nitty gritty. Let's really get into the nitty gritty. So what is a sabbatical? And is a sabbatical only for church people and nonprofits? Or how would you talk about the same thing with business owners or non-faith-based people? Like, tell us about this concept.
This is a really exciting moment, first of all, for the future of work. This is a hard moment, but it's an exciting moment at the same time for the future of work. Because not that long ago, Chris, I would have said that nonprofits are actually ahead on this thing called sabbatical, and that businesses, I'm not sure if they'll even accept the idea of it. Well, corporations have turned and actually headed toward sabbatical, now realizing it's actually a really, really good thing. I'll come back and define it. And then there was actually just a Harvard Business Review article on this, a guy that's by now studied about 300 leaders from the business space who have received sabbaticals and what they've done with it, how it's impacted them, their creativity. Largely, that was sort of the biggest finding, and how they've come back stronger for the next season. Businesses are really starting to investigate it, and some to even have a sabbatical plan or process. So if we'd had this conversation a year or two ago, I'd have been like, man, this is a growth area. Maybe business can do it someday. But we're seeing more and more companies beginning to look into it for longevity, for health, retention, leaders, of course. And so your talent doesn't walk somewhere else that treats them better. And frankly, otherwise, you're just going to have to keep throwing more and more money at your employees when so many employees now, especially in their 30s and 40s, are more interested in quality of life. As long as they're making enough, they're interested in quality of life. So let me just say this. Yeah. What is sabbatical? Here's how I define it. A month or more away from your primary work. You may have to do a little real estate investing or something if you have a side hustle on the side. Away from your primary work for the purpose of replenishment with the intention to come back stronger. So those are big phrases, but not for the purpose of going and starting another business. That's really, really important. That's hard work, not for the intention of going and writing a book that will help your business. That's also hard work. I write books. It is very, very hard work, but literally for replenishment. And replenishment is just what's low, what's empty. What has this last season taken out of you, and giving it time to fill back up? And what's interesting is some people are like, oh, that feels really woo-woo, or the biggest phrase is, must be nice. If you're a business leader, you're going to have to fight for this. Maybe you're asking somebody else who's in charge of the company, and you're the head of a department or something, Maybe you're the person that started this organization, and I've heard of people having to be kind of dragged out kicking and screaming out of their own organization. They desperately want to take a break. They don't feel like they deserve it, or they can. They don't trust their employees, or they just feel like they're letting everybody down because they're going to be working hard while I'm not. And many times employees are like, we need you to go, like go. And to come back stronger, that's the big one. And I see tons of that. We've got 3 different phases for a sabbatical. But when people come back stronger, they usually know themselves better. They realize this thing isn't going to burn down without me. They put a stress test on their employees. And here's the biggest one, Chris. It is actually an extremely helpful leadership development tool because your team has to function without you. And I'm not talking about 2 weeks beforehand. You're like, I'm out for 3 months. No, wisely preparing them. And then you're away. Guess what happens? They raise their capacity 10, 15, 20, 30% without you because they have to step into that new area. At the same time, maybe you're away and going, I don't want to do that piece of operations anymore. And then Sally's been kicking butt in operations when you're away. And Sally goes, I want to do some more operations. I could grow into this. And you come back and I get to watch this almost like a creative miracle when these people are like, actually, I want to step more into a visionary type role. And this person's like, actually, I feel like I have more capacity here. And they did that really well while you're away. And we get to watch organizations kind of settle in that for the next season. So it's actually very helpful for the organization. Now, bottom line, it has to be prepared for well, stewarded well. I'm a sabbatical coach. I highly recommend a coach because leaders freak out and go, what am I supposed to do? What are all the things? What are the expectations? And it's kind of like, okay, slow down. Let's work toward it. Let's prepare well. So that's overall what's about or kind of defining or even marking sabbatical for a leader and for an org.
I love that, man. And we help people build self-sustaining businesses, self-governed businesses. And this is such a good tool to step back. So we use EOS and we've kind of created our own system alongside of it. But if you don't stress test it, let's say you implement it for 3 or 4 years and you're in a good spot, right? But you're still going to have, as the leader and entrepreneur, CEO, things that you probably know you should have given up, but you aren't going to give up. And your team isn't putting enough pressure on you. And it allows it just to say, hey, now when I'm not in the room, what's going to happen? And it's interesting because I've tried to do that already with our team where anytime a team member comes in and says, we have this issue and we have I'm like, I just sit there and I don't say anything. And I'm like, okay, cool. Okay.
If I were not here, what would you do?
Yeah, that's exactly. I just let them talk because pretty soon they're talking through the solution. I'm not saying anything, right? Literally, hey, Alan, that sounds good. Yep. Okay. What do you think? Okay, cool. What have we done in the past? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Okay, cool. And then eventually they get to the end of it and they're like, okay, yeah, so what should I do? And I'm like, I think you already know. Like you already said the answer. And if they don't, I'm like, hey, go think of 3 to 5 solutions, not one. Give yourself 3 to 5 solutions because the 5th one may be the one that has the genius there. But just sitting and not jumping into it, it's so hard as entrepreneurs because we see it, right? We see the big picture and we see a lot of the things that maybe other people don't see that are in the trenches. But I love that as a tool. A question that we love to ask our potential clients is, do you know what your business is worth? And if you sold your business today, would it fulfill your personal and financial goals? If you're a successful business owner, but you don't know when or how to sell your business, and if you've ever wondered what each additional day in your business is actually costing you, we'd love to chat. If you're ready to spend more time with your family, your friends, or traveling, come sit down with our team because when you work with exceptional business advisors, we'll help you build a blueprint to sell your business successfully and help you create, capture, and achieve your dream life. Don't wait for the right time. The time's now. Go ahead and scan the QR code or book a discovery appointment at excoadvisors.com. What are some of the really cool stories that have come out of people going on rest or sabbatical that you've been coaching? Big takeaways you coach or were involved at least with a good friend of ours, Stu, that went on a sabbatical, and I was catching up with him and getting some learnings, and that was really cool to see him come back. But what are some typical things that come out of this or just cool stories?
Creative freshness is a story that I hear almost every single time. And by the way, I've not had any nightmare situations. People in the back of their mind have probably heard of like a friend of a friend or I don't know, their cousin or somebody had like a nightmare situation, and that becomes a phantom, like, oh, I'm going to have that. And whenever I investigate those, there were always cracks below the surface, or there were hidden expectations for sabbatical, either for them, I thought I was going to blank and I only blank, or we hoped that they were going to whatever, or it was really like disciplinary leave. We're trying to usher them off staff kind of thing. So those aren't sabbaticals to me, and those weren't properly resourced. So I think a lot of times there's that fear piece. The opposite often happens, where the leader comes back kind of creatively resilient of, we're going to be okay. Maybe another word for that also would be more grounded, where they're not as kind of, fidgety on the next thing, and maybe have even self-sabotaged themselves or the business in the past by getting too involved. And the word for that is over-functioning. And leaders often don't know they're doing it until they're out. A resettling, especially if they're working with a coach, Chris, on what do I really love about the business? Because it snowballs. You start it for this reason, and then maybe what you were doing 80% of the time initially has become 20% later. And you're like, I have actually moved so far from the transformation. I hate this. One guy went on a sabbatical, came back, and he actually said, I love the designing piece. And so I'm going to, as the founder, move over into the design team. He had a blast. And so before he moved on and sold the company, he actually moved like, this is actually what I love and why this company grew. And now we've got enough operations people and enough people to be doing the management. I don't want to be managing. I want to be designing. And he moved over there. So when a sabbatical is done well, you usually come back with freedom, especially if you've put the stuff that you help companies do and EOS and those kind of operating systems into that. If it's healthy, then you usually have the option to choose and to go, what does that look like?
That.
There's two different books on this, one called The Second Mountain by David Brooks, another one that is called From Strength to Strength by a guy named Arthur Brooks, no relation in those two dudes. But usually in our 50s, we get this desire for either the second mountain or what he calls crystallized intelligence in From Strength to Strength. And the idea is that we lead differently as we get older, and we think about legacy, we think about mentoring, we think about guidance and sage type wisdom, and realize, wow, if I keep leading this way, I'll actually be out of season. And many leaders I watch step into kind of a founder role where they have more freedom, more space in there, more contribution. They're stepping away from some of the day-to-day, and they want to be involved more in the advising or the decisions or raising up young leaders. This is also great when there's, say, a new CEO or president comes in, step out for a while to give them some space to be able to lead, and then they can step back in another side role. So transitional for the leader. Of course, for the longevity piece, a lot of people think, oh, I'm done. What they're saying in, oh, I'm done, is often, oh, I'm tired and I need something to shift. But when you're tired, you're not sure what, oh, I'm done means. And so I've heard people say I'm done, and then I realize many of them are just saying, I'm done with that season. I need something fresh. I need something new. I need something that matches this phase of my life or leadership.
I love it, man. And I've always said I'm not going to retire. I'm going to continue to work until hopefully I live to 120. But I think it is understanding those phases. And like you said, the throttle, like where's your throttle at? If you're 90% throttle all the time, you're number one, you're going to die early. Like that's just the reality. I was seeing a study, and I don't have the stats, but it was like half of CEOs die a year after they resign or transition. Crazy? And I was like, wow, that's horrible. And I think it is a lot of pent up emotional, physical stress that now your body's de-stressing and it doesn't have a way to de-stress, well. And then also de-stress into I'm doing something else, right? So you lose that vision of what's next, and then you're de-stressing, and it's really fascinating, man. But I think go ahead.
One more thought on that.
Sure.
People realize the difference on sabbatical between time and energy. And let me explain what I mean by that. The currency of leadership is energy, not time. 5 minutes or 5 hours of the right thing could beat 5 weeks or 5 months of the wrong thing. And many times we just think, oh, if I just throw more time at it. And sometimes I find the laziest leaders are working 80 hours a week. There's a leader that has said to me for the last 4 weeks, oh, I need to get coaching. Yeah, but I had this thing tomorrow and I got this. And like, I'm pretty much going to stop following up with the dude. I may write him a note and just say, you let me know if you're ready to invest time and energy in this. But the answer has obviously not been working. Just chuck 20 more hours, 10 more hours at this, do more. He's not even sure what he's amazing at. And if he were, he could back up and go, okay, where do I invest my best energy? So what I'm trying to get leaders to do, Chris, in my leadership coaching is to move from time management to energy investment. And again, maybe it's 5 minutes of the right coaching conversation, or like you're doing, listening to somebody who goes, oh, okay, great. You help them make the best decision. That's actually gonna be better than you maybe nursing that decision for the next 5 months. So that's a big
100%.
thing too, is people begin to realize, I actually want to put my energy back to the things that truly matter to me. Like yours, faith and family. Like most leaders don't know what they really care about, what really matters to them. You can't prioritize what you haven't already clarified.
100%. And I think too, whether it be with EOS or outside of EOS, when we do coaching, we do personal wealth business coaching, right? So, and it's part of really the transition process for business typically, but we have the same 4 tools. And one of the tools that's across all of those is scorecards. And so exactly what you said, if our team is saying in the business or outside of the business, hey, I'm spending X amount of energy in this or X amount of time in this, I'm like, well, is that the thing that is actually going to get the outcome we need? And most of the time it isn't, right? Hey, I sent 100 emails. I'm like, well, actually our business is generated by this thing, not that thing. So you're doing the wrong thing. It's cool. That's great. Like we still need to do the emails, but that's the wrong lever. And so if you took that 5 hours worth of work and you did 1 hour, like you said, on meeting the right referral partners or the right people in the right space. And I think personally, it's the same thing. If you say, I am going to prioritize my family with no scorecard, you will not prioritize your family. And I've said this with the folks in our small group, how we love our children is dictated by our scorecards and our standards. You can say, I love my kids and I love my wife, but if we don't have a scorecard and a standard for how we're going to actualize that, and for us, there's a couple simple ones. We do every breakfast and every dinner when we're not traveling together. So 6 a.m., I cook breakfast, we sit down, we do our devotion, kids go to school, we go to work, we hammer, right? We come back. 5 p.m., we do the same thing. We're doing dinner, we're doing family time, not phone time, not social. That to me was a very simple scorecard to say, we will have, when our kids are with us, we will be there present. How do we do that? Put our phones away and have dedicated from the time they get home to the time they go to bed time. Now that can't be the same for everybody. I understand people have different frameworks and different things that are going on. But that framework, now I don't think about, I think a lot of people think, am I a good dad? Am I a good mom? Am I a good grandpa? Am I good, and now I know, right? It's not because I'm some like different person that has a genetic better dad gene. That's not a thing. It's because we have a framework to say, if I want to be a good dad or a good husband, I know the things that if I do these things, it will give all of the symptoms towards being a good dad. So I love that, man. What's some of the bad advice that you've heard along the journey? Man, I really want to dig into this because there is half of what we do on this podcast is really dispelling myths. So people are like, hey, I want to buy a business, or I want to sell a business, or I want to grow this way, or I want to grow that way. And I saw this YouTube video and most of it's really bad counsel. What are some of the bigger frames around hustle and grind and resting that you've seen that are out there that you're like, guys, this is not useful for building our frame as an exceptional life? We want everyone to build an exceptional life, whatever that definition is for you. What's some bad advice or frames you've seen that you're trying to dispel with your coaching?
Someday I'll be able to take time off.
Oh, that's a good
Someday never comes, or it's 10 years from now. And to me, it is, you ask, what would have to be true in order to, and then you fill in the blank. Again, if your scorecard involves time with your kids, what does that look like? That involves you and your wife getting away every year. We'll start with a weekend trip away. And that's a lot of what I'm working with entrepreneurs. And they're like, oh, there's this lie that when you sign up to start a business, that it's crazy for the first 3 years, 5 years, whatever. I've heard all kinds of numbers, 7 years. It's always odd numbers. But the reality is, if you say it's crazy, that's self-fulfilling prophecy, period.
100%.
If I say my life is busy, Chris, then what happens? I say yes to more because I go, I'm a busy guy, I have a busy life. And when you go, no, my life is meaningfully full. It's full. Like me after a meal with a friend, when my heart is full, my belly's full. I sat with a friend last night and we just had an amazing time over tacos. I'm full. I'm not gorged. I'm not, sleepy after that. I just had an amazing time. So I think my life is just crazy. This is what you're signing up for as an entrepreneur. Those gaps, they actually create the ability for you to think critically in the rest time, but also it forces you to be able to plan well, and it forces you to have to utilize your team well if you have a team. It forces you to have to utilize your time and energy to the best possible way. Someday I'll take a break is one of those. It's kind of like, well, someday I'll spend my money on these kind of things. And it's like, well, how do you begin now? What does that look like? I can't afford to rest. The reality is you can't afford to not rest. You have those creative breakthroughs. Again, weekends, evenings, and so much of that around this is just what it takes. And there's like 100 implications of that. This is just what it takes. Chris, do you hear that one a lot in businesses?
All the time. And I've pushed back a lot. We have 9 businesses. Okay. And granted, we're older and, we're not young 20s where we're grinding more than we were. And that I think is a season. I always tell people, guys, if you're not married and you got all the time in the world and you're trying to build something great, like get after it. Once you have kids, I can tell you, I'm not doing the same things I did.
Right. Go try a bunch of stuff. Work really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. That season's important. But when people come to me and they're like, I don't have time, I don't have this, I'm like, hey, respectfully, we have a lot of stuff going on. Businesses in multiple states, a lot of complications. We've gotten sued multiple times. We've had all the things you're having. And I don't work on Sundays and I don't work almost any evening. And I'm like, doesn't mean the work's there, doesn't mean the emails still aren't coming in, but that's a framework that we've created and abided by. And it's not that it's easy, man. But we have an oil and gas company that I'm a partner in. And people always ask about this. They're like, you're drilling, horizontal wells. And I'm like, our framework's pretty simple. Did someone get killed or injured badly? You call us anytime, right? Call me at 1 a.m. if something really, really bad happens. That has never happened in 10 years, almost 12, actually, no, 11 years now. I'm like, if something somewhat is going wrong on location, we'll be all right. We've had that. That's part of doing business. But I think also the framework of like what is truly important. If a client calls you emails you at 6 p.m., hey, can you send the proposal? It's like, you don't need to answer them. You can send it tomorrow at 8 a.m. Like, don't make their urgency your problem. But anyways, I think I've really I'm probably a little bit of not a jerk per se, but I really push hard with people to say, hey guys, you say you want this, but you're doing this. Like there's not congruence and you can get what you want, but it's hard.
And isn't it an irony, Chris, that people leave an established job because they want more freedom? And then they find themselves more chained up in their own business than they ever were in the corporation.
Absolutely.
And the thing they wanted to escape from. And the reality is like, this is your life. This is your life. You get to make decisions on it. You have generally high autonomy, entrepreneur. The question is, what's the cost of it? Even if it costs you some to be able to go 4 weeks a year off, 1 week every quarter, 4 straight weeks, whatever that is, 2 days at a time, where you're, shortening up weeks, like what would have to be true in order to blank? So we have to flip the script from I could never blank. That's almost always going to end in poor thinking.
For sure.
And I always get nervous when there's binary thinking. It's a 1 or it's a 0. Like you said, there's 5 other options. Let's think, what could they be? And then you get to this growth mindset. What would have to be true in order to, and you're talking about prioritizing your kids, take a large chunk of work, i.e. a sabbatical off, literally build in 4 weeks a year where you're intentionally off of work. One of the things I do is a think day. It's kind of for mental rest. I do a think day every quarter, 8 hours at an undisclosed location in my city. My team can't get a hold of me. My phone's on airplane mode. And I'm journaling through the 5 to 8 big problems or obstacles that we're facing. And I come out of that with extreme clarity. It's 8 hours. I go pick up my kids from school afterwards. And that's mental rest for me. It's a game changer.
I agree. And I think too, that's a really good point. Customize it to what works for you. I mean, I love business. It's my passion, man. I love it. And so there was a coach that was like, hey, there's this concept. We were in a coach program called Strategic Coach, and they have a really good concept. They say, hey, have
Dan
free
Sullivan.
days, focus days, and buffer days, right? And you've probably heard of this frame. And they're like, on the free day, only rest and only do this and only do that. And I'm like, man, the most restful thing for me is I go to our cabin and I journal, but it's always about business concepts, right? But that to me is restful. And they're like, no, you can't do that. You just need to like zone out. And I'm like, but that's how I rest. Like that is my process. That is what I enjoy doing. And so I think just really like tailor the thing. If it's 2 hours, like you said, or 8 hours, like it doesn't need to be, hey, if you can't take a month sabbatical, great. What could you do next week? Could you give yourself 2 hours in the morning where you just go away, put your phone over and just spend time thinking? Even in the airplane, I just flew back from Texas last night. You see everybody's watching TV and, YouTube and all this stuff. I get more clarity for some reason at 30,000 feet than anywhere else.
I can't get distracted. Man. I don't even want to get out and bother the person to go get to the bathroom. Dude, here's what's mind-blowing to me. Everyone says I don't have time. And then what's everyone doing before the plane takes off? Wasting time.
For sure.
What they're doing, watching some Avengers movie they don't even care about on the plane. And it's like, I don't buy that. What would have to be true for you to make the thinking time, make the deep space time? What's interesting is he talks about 150 days. Dan Sullivan in all of his books, but I think 10X is easier than 2X, talks about working 150 days a year. And I look down to it while I track everything. What are you tracking, by the way? You can't have a scorecard if you don't track it. And I track 7 things currently in my life every single week. And that shifts a little bit from year to year, but one of those is clear, my vacation days. And I have lived like a king even when we weren't making money like a king early in business. But it was just like, this is one thing I'm going to start with and I'm going to continue.
For sure.
Is to be able to have those amount of days off. But it's crazy, man. It's inverse. We think if I work more, I'll accomplish more. But actually, when we pull back and work less, then we literally have, in design, they call it a forcing function, where it's like, well, if I can only work till 3 o'clock today, then I'm going to make sure it really, really matters and actually get more done working till 3 than I did till 6. It's a miracle.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that too. So in the airplanes too, the habits I have is journaling, and not on an iPad, but on a piece of paper, my journal, and then also reviewing my photos with my family. The most interesting thing, touching on your point of living like a king when you don't have money like a king, is every one of the experiences that we love and our kids love, not everyone, but 99% of them are, we're on a walk as a family and we saw a turkey. We're out fishing, costs no money, right? Like costs a $5 lure if you lose it. We're on a hike. We're biking, like all these things that literally people are like, well, we got to save up to go to Disney and we got to do this. And I'm like, your kids, the kids all will have a great time. But kids, I always say, look, kids will eat candy all day long if you give them candy all day long. They'll tell you, let's go to Disney World every year if you say, what do you want to do? But the reality is the value of those encounters is always going to be intentional together time doing something. Right. And it's usually something that costs $0. So anyways, I think that's just an encouragement to people that are like, hey, I'm just not quite there financially. It's like, you're there. You're there for the important stuff. So let's wrap this up. And I always like to wrap up with a couple things. Number one, Alan, thank you so much for coming on and thank you for everything you do. But where can people find you? Because a lot of the folks that watch and listen to us are entrepreneurs and they may say, hey, Alan, I need your help. I need to figure out how to rest well. So what's the easiest and best way for them to find you?
Yeah, you can go to antiburnout.com. So ANTI burnout.com. And that's my coaching resource or book there. Also the H2 leader, VH with a 2 leader.com about the coaching. We'll post there. And actually we have some kind of new cool surprises we're going to start adding there as well.
Love it, man. Okay, so final question that I usually close with. What's a tool, a book, a podcast, some sort of resource that's changed your life over the past 6 months? I always like to bring it more recent. And then what would you leave as encouragement or wisdom for, and I always say young entrepreneur, because your 20s is hard, man. We were there. You don't have any momentum. You don't have any resources. You're trying a bunch of things out. So let's think about young entrepreneurs. What's some wisdom or encouragement you could give them?
Yeah, first of all, you talked about Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, the GOAT really when it comes to entrepreneur coaching. 10X is easier than 2X is a book. I think I'm on my third read of it right now and asking my team to read it. Talk about mindset, blowing up what you think is possible. So go read that. Actually listen to it. The audio version is even better as Dan gets interviewed at the end of each chapter.
That is
Young
good.
entrepreneur. Here's what I'd say. Right now, build in the disciplines and build in the hard work, because that stuff is going to create compounding interest later. When you follow up with somebody, when you tell them you will, then you become a trustworthy and valuable person in their life. When you do the stuff you say you're going to do, you will be given more dollars to manage, a bigger gig, a bigger opportunity down the line. You are not too good for those things. In fact, now is the time to build in that discipline, because you're only going to get trusted with more as you get older, and it's only going to be harder to develop that stuff further on down the line. So do that stuff and invest in your health as well right now, physically, relationally, emotionally, mentally. The computer in your pocket is telling you need to do all kinds of things that are actually the opposite of what you need to be doing right now. So I believe your 20s and 30s can be a phenomenal time to become an incredible leader.
Dude, I love that. And I want to actually take a little counter to add to that. I just saw that one of the guys from Jackass, that show that was big when we were younger, has been sober for 16 years.
Steve-O.
And Steve-O, and I was like, because I remember watching that show and I was like, I don't want to watch this show. This is not useful. I don't like what they're doing. They're hurting themselves. They're hurting other people. It was just not a fit for me. And I remember praying for those guys. I was like, man, God, these guys have a lot of influence and they could be useful to your kingdom. I hope that they find you and they find a more useful life. Okay, build your disciplines now, right? Like get it done if you're young. But if you haven't done it, start now. Right? Yeah. If you're 35, 40, 50, and you're like, hey, I'm not where I want to be and I don't have the things, get somebody like Alan, get the right tribe around you, start today. Hey, today I'm going to be sober. Today I'm going to actually fulfill the commitments that I said I was going to do. Like at any point in time, you get to change and be that person that you know you're going to be, so do it today. So Alan, dude, that's such good closing encouragement. Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother, and look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.